Joe Biden had his State of the Union address last night, and in my mind, he executed perfectly. I've been waiting for Joe Biden to get aggressive and to confront the MAGA faction of the Republican Party and their obstruction and derailment of legislation and taking care of this nation. This State of the Union address is honestly one of my favorites that I've ever watched. I've made it a habit of mine to watch as many as I could, and this one actually takes the cake despite the fact that, Joe Biden's not in his prime, he's not in his speaking prime, but he did very, very well, starting with Ukraine.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans, in January 1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union." Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
And this is what Republicans desperately need to get through their thin skulls, because I don't think there's much going on inside. Republicans have to understand. I don't know what's stopping them from understanding, but they have to understand Ukraine is not the end. You have Moldova, Romania, you have the Baltic states. The idea that Vladimir Putin and anyone in his camp intends to stop at Ukraine is wrong. There have been many reports stating that Vladimir Putin, in the eyes of the Russian people before the invasion, was too soft on Ukraine. Too soft. Now imagine what being hard would look like. Pause. Imagine what being hard would look like in the eyes of the Russian people. Probably an invasion of Moldova, Romania, the Baltic states, possibly even a slugfest with a NATO state like Poland, who they're woefully unprepared to fight, but have the ego and the delusion necessary to fight. It is important, and important doesn't even describe, important's not even the word that properly describes the gravity of the situation here. But it is important for Republican voters and political pundits to understand the gravity of Ukraine. Many Republican lawmakers and legislators understand the importance of Ukraine, but this MAGA faction of the Republican Party is steadily and consistently derailing our national security and our international power by trying to undermine both NATO and Ukraine, and it has to stop. Vladimir Putin and Russia have imperialistic desires and goals, and they will stop at nothing to achieve them. The thing standing in the way of them achieving that is the United States and NATO. And Ukraine, whether you want to look at it as a proxy state in this war or not, Ukraine will be our tool by which to stop it. Russia, of its own free will, chose to overstep the boundary, literally, to invade Ukraine. They will now pay an economic and military price for this. Why would we reward Russia and Putin for destabilizing Europe? Or at least attempting to destabilize Europe? Why would we reward them for causing economic damage? Republicans constantly cry about inflation, inflation, inflation. Who do you think significantly added to inflation after COVID? We're coming out of COVID, coming out of the effects of COVID, still under the effects of COVID, but trying to come out of it. And we got Vlad, Big Vlad, Vladimir Putin decides he's going to invade Ukraine and cause even more economic upheaval. And in y'all's mind, Republicans, you think it makes sense to give him what he wants, to give him the Donbass region, to allow him to keep Crimea. If we could possibly retake these regions, which I don't know the likelihood of us even retaking Crimea, but if we can at least retake the Donbass, which the issue is a matter of ammunition, not personnel, if we can just give the Ukrainians the support they need, we don't have to worry about a World War III scenario in which American troops are dying on the battlefield. But if we don't deliver these supplies, if we don't deliver these weapons, if we don't deliver this intel, we could possibly see this conflict dragging out even longer and spreading even further. So I want Republicans to keep that one in mind.
But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine.
Tell him, Joe.
And provide the weapons.
Tell him, Joe.
That needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote.
And it highlights the problem with the Republican Party, the propagation of this isolationist narrative born out of political naivete and ignorance. The idea that we can go back to isolationism in 2024. Do y'all not see the political mayhem, the geopolitical mayhem that Iran has been able to cause with just proxies alone? They've been able to reach far beyond their normal reach. They've been able to reach far beyond what they're capable of with just proxies. In Yemen, in Palestine, in the Middle East in general, they've been able to cause massive chaos. The world is not this is not total war. This is not some fog of war situation where you can't see and can't interact with the rest of the, no. Isolationism does not work. Unfortunately, thanks to characters like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Vivek Ramaswamy, Russell Brand, Donald Trump, Republican voters have been fed a fantasy world in which America can turn away from the world stage and still maintain its geopolitical, global, and economic dominance. These two things cannot exist independent of one another. And it's incredibly important for Republican voters to eventually get that one through their head. You have people like Vivek Ramaswamy coming out in public and lying and saying, Ukraine banned Christianity. Why should we support them? You have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, Ukraine is not the 51st state. Ma'am, with all due respect, Marjorie Taylor Greene, how about y'all tell the average Republican how much money we're sending to Ukraine? What percentage of America's GDP is actually going toward Ukraine? That's a topic of conversation Republicans have not confronted yet. See, you guys have made a pretty good amount of momentum lying to your constituency about how much money is actually going to Ukraine. You think by saying billions, that all of a sudden makes it a significant amount in comparison to what we're spending on everything else. But that's a lie. And the data shows that we're spending about 1% of our GDP on Ukraine. Significantly insignificant, if that even makes any sense. It's unbelievably insignificant in the grand scheme of our spending. And yet you have lied to the Republican Party. You've lied to Republican voters and misled them into believing that somehow or another we don't need to be the global leader. We don't need to maintain global hegemony. We don't need to maintain power and influence over Europe. We don't need to curtail Russia. Oh, and by the way, we're spending way too much money on Ukraine. What about the American people? Donald Trump has sat there and emboldened Vladimir Putin by saying he would encourage him to attack NATO states and have not paid 2% of their GDP toward defense. What is wrong with Donald Trump? Donald Trump made a mistake. I'm sure there's plenty of Trump supporters that are going to watch this and aren't going to like what I'm saying, but it is the facts. Donald Trump up. He made a mistake. He said something he should not have said. What we don't want to do now is embolden Vladimir Putin. His actions have increased inflation. They have. His actions have forced us to place sanctions on Russia, which economically affects the world. His actions have significantly hampered Ukraine's grain exports, which has affected the global economy, and energy exports, which has affected the economies of developing nations in Africa and in the Middle East that depend upon Ukrainian fuel and food. Vladimir Putin himself is a source of economic upheaval. Vladimir Putin himself is a source of economic destruction. So when I sit there and see people saying, oh, the economy and, Joe Biden and inflation, how about we talk about many other factors contributing to inflation? How about we talk about Vladimir Putin? The reality is Joe Biden is not the source of inflation. But if you want to talk about the sources of inflation, let's talk about Vladimir Putin, the very man the right has now found a way to revere, love, promote, propagate. That man that y'all have fallen in love with in the last 2 to 3 years is a significant source of your woes. I don't see y'all coming at him the way you're coming at Joseph Biden. Just saying.
Our president actually said that bowing down to a Russian leader, I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
Cook his ass up, Joe. Light his ass up, Joe.
America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. Let's stand up.
This right here throws a wrench into the Republican narrative. NATO is constantly expanding. NATO is encroaching. NATO is expanding. Why is NATO expanding? Let's have that conversation. Why is NATO expanding? Vladimir Putin, in that Tucker Carlson interview, was very, very adamant about not talking about NATO. Tucker desperately wanted to demonize NATO over and over and over again, but couldn't pull it off because Vladimir Putin did not want to have that conversation. Why? This is part of the reason why. Number one, after invading Ukraine, the Russian military was significantly degraded in its capabilities. Vladimir Putin would not have been able to stop a NATO invasion or aid into Ukraine in which we sent troops to push Russian troops out. He knows his troops cannot survive that. He knows that. He knows, and yet NATO still did not do it. So if NATO was truly plotting on the downfall and destruction of Russia, why didn't we rush into Ukraine when Russia was weak and Russia is weak now? Why haven't we rushed in and pushed them out? Furthermore, we have Finland and Sweden joining NATO. Why do you think Finland and Sweden joined NATO? They joined because Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia violated the sovereignty and the security of Ukraine. But with Finland and Sweden becoming parts of NATO, now their security is guaranteed. Guaranteed. NATO is not about encroaching upon Russia, violating Russia, taking away Russian sovereignty. That's not what NATO is about. NATO is about securing Europe from the imperialistic desires and goals of Russia. That is what NATO is here for. And the fact that Sweden and Finland joined NATO in the response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine only goes to show and further prove that Vladimir Putin and his fear-mongering about NATO was wrong, and far-right Republican pundits and politicians demonizing NATO was wrong. Vlad himself no longer wants to talk about NATO. So I would highly encourage the pundits and the voters and even the politicians who have peddled this ridiculous narrative about NATO, I would encourage y'all to let it rest too. Vlad is done with it, so y'all should probably leave it alone as well. It was always a bunk narrative, but thankfully Sweden and Finland, and the fact that Russia is still somehow in Ukraine, in spite of the fact that NATO is fully capable of kicking them out, let these facts show you and remind you of the fact that America is not the bully and NATO is not the bully. There's only one bully here, and we all know who that is.
Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. and they know how to fight.
Little Vikings.
Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm.
Exactly.
My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood.
I don't think people realize how lucky we are that they failed. In lieu of January 6th, so much has happened. Rudy Giuliani going out sad, Trump going out sad, Fox News going out sad, all of them down bad, all of them out sad. The narrative of the stolen election fell flat with that Dominion voting lawsuit. You would think of any entity in this world that would have information on a stolen election, it would be Fox News. If any individual in this world would have information on a stolen election, it would be Rudy Giuliani. And yet, in spite of the fact that 4 years have passed, no evidence to prove any stolen election has come forth. Now, Trump is not incapable of digging up dirt. We've seen what's going on with Fani Willis. Fani Willis is in a tight spot right now. Why? Because people in that Trump camp have found information about her personal life and the dealings she's had and the mixing of her personal life with her career. They found some information that wasn't so savory. They did. The Trump camp has proven itself to be very capable of finding dirt, of digging up dirt, of finding information that people don't generally know. And yet somehow or another they were incapable of finding substantial information or any proof that would prove of a stolen election. So with that being said, I want people to remember how lucky we are that January 6th failed because it was built on a lie. Trump maintains it wasn't a lie, and yet we're 4 years into the narrative and he's yet to prove anything. And if he loses this one as well, you'll know he'll say the same thing. Rigged, stolen. We know how this is probably going to go. We know. Thankfully, January 6th failed. Because the fact that it was built on lies and yet was able to have such a significant and possibly destructive impact on this nation, that to me, I'm starting to realize now why liberals are so misinformation. I used to hate that shit. Now, I'm a liberal now. I was a Republican, conservative before. But now I'm starting to realize why liberals were always, had their fuffles all feathered, their ruffles, like whatever. Their feathers all ruffled behind misinformation. But I get it now. I'm not pro-censorship. I am not pro-censorship. I'm not pro-banning people or deplatforming people. But I'm simply saying that now I understand why liberals used to be so bent out of shape about misinformation. Because this shit is crazy. It can cause destruction.
America stood strong and democracy prevailed.
Talk your shit, Joe.
We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended.
Yeah.
My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th.
Tell him.
I will not do that.
Whoop that ass,
This
Joe.
is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
Mike Johnson, stand your ass up. Go on ahead and stand up. Why you not standing up? Joe, whatever his name, Mike Johnson, Joe Johnson, whatever the fuck his name is, stand up. And why he keep doing all of that? Is it so impossible for this man to simply say, yes, Joe Biden, you're doing a great job, you're making a great point. I, a fellow American, a fellow statesman, encourage what you're saying? Is the Republican Party so anti-Democrat that they can't just say, stand up and clap and say, fair point? Are we that so far gone as a nation? I'm asking that question knowing the damn answer, but you know.
As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you without regard to party to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office of defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again, it's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child. But the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade.
Now I get why he's looking like that now, because this whole State of the Union address for the last 8 minutes and 15 seconds has been completely humiliating for the Republican Party. I get it now. And now talking about IVF, yeah, this is a tough one. Republicans, what's going on with y'all in Alabama, bro? Like, we're in 2024. Y'all have got to shape up, bro. Y'all are doing so much damage to your wins and possible victories. Well, let's call it what it is. Impossible victories, losses. There's no way after what y'all did with Roe versus Wade and now IVF that y'all are possibly going to survive any future elections. Your best bet is maybe Trump. But I don't see y'all winning Congress. I don't see y'all winning that. I just don't see y'all dominating Congress. I don't see y'all dominating the House or the Senate. After what you've done with Roe versus Wade and now IVF, it's about over for y'all. Truly.
Dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guaranteed.
Believe it or not, a Republican did block a bill that would protect this. These MAGAites are truly destroying this country, bro. Like, I've got nothing against Republicans. I've got nothing against conservatives, but y'all gotta get rid of this little MAGA tumor. Y'all gotta get these out of here, please. They gotta go. Y'all gotta let it go. Like, get rid of. And what's crazy is y'all had a chance. January 6th was y'all's chance to get rid of Donald Trump and his henchmen, and y'all didn't take it.
Right to ADF. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader defending reproductive freedom.
She been missing. I don't know. I forgot she was VP. She has been very strategic in making sure people have forgotten she's VP. She's the most low-key VP I've ever seen. I don't know if these two have, like, smoke with each other, or if, you know, she was just, like, she just doesn't want to be attached to Joe. I don't know what's going on. But when I look at their relationship in comparison to Pence and Trump, well, that went south. Okay, let's compare it to a much more wholesome and beautiful relationship. Biden and Obama. That VP-president relationship, amazing. These two, they need to figure it out because she's been doing a little bit too much hiding. Joe, talk to your girl, bro. Talk to her. Explain to her that we don't see her. We forget that she's VP. Y'all got to have a little talk because I forgot she was even on Earth.
So much more. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose.
How is this happening in 2020? What's happening? Republicans, y'all got it. What are y'all doing?
Forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following. And with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about it.
Look at Kavanaugh. He survived. Yo, Kavanaugh survived the fact that he made it, bro. Like, bro, that nigga fought wars. He fought battles to get where he is, and he over there taking away women's rights. Kavanaugh, do better, G. Come on, bro.
Clearly. Those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
Big Biz.
Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward. It's the authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, the majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win. He viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really.
Is that Marjorie doing all that screaming? Marjorie, come on. You're a Southerner. If anybody's supposed to know common decency and respect, it's supposed to be you. But you over here screaming at the President of the United States during the State of the Union address, wearing a MAGA cap, which is a violation of the Senate floor, and a red jacket.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by, if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth it taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 months, 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks,
I mean, y'all can sit there, y'all Republicans can sit there and at the end of the day, he's offering a solution. You guys have derailed the solution in an attempt to give Donald Trump a topic, a platform to run on in 2024. That's a decision you chose to make. You chose to put the national security of the United States of America at risk in the name of giving Trump, of all people on this earth, Donald Trump, a billionaire. You've done that in an attempt to give him a chance at 2024. That's what y'all did. So don't get up in here and all it is when Joe Biden brings up the fact that you all have derailed national security, both foreign and domestic, and one of your reasons for your domestic derailment being trying to give Trump a platform to run on in 2024. Joe Biden offered to shut down the border. He offered increased funding. He offered more judges, more Border Patrol agents. He offered so much. This man offered technology for detecting drugs. He's offered so much for the border, and yet Republicans shot it down because it wasn't the perfect border bill that they wanted. This man offered to shut down the border completely. They still didn't accept it, because they were trying to scheme and plot for the possible success of Donald J. Trump in 2024. But don't worry, the topic of y'all derailing a border bill for the sake of national security, that was built for the sake of national security, and your derailment being for the sake of Donald Trump, that topic will continuously come up over and over and over again, and it will come up on the debate stage between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
Look at that nervousness. Because all these schemes and games that they've been playing up here in Congress with no cameras, people not knowing what's going on, now you have to answer for it here at the State of the Union address. Look at Lauren Boebert, look at Gates, look at all of them. Discomfort. They're not happy. They don't look bold. They don't look confident. And the reason being is because they cannot in any way, shape, or form deny the facts of the bill, nor can they deny the fact that they derailed the bill. These MAGA henchmen have been the source of a lack of productivity in Congress, and it can't lie forever. It was y'all. We know it's y'all, and y'all might as well just own up to it being y'all. But, you know, they'll sit there and all of this on camera like y'all weren't bold as fuck talking all mad shit before the State of the Union address, but now that the whole nation is tuning into what you've been up to, now all of a sudden, okay. I ain't gonna lie, Lauren Boebert looking like she's straight off the boat from India. What the fuck? So go back to her. Where's Boebert? Y'all see Boebert right there? At the very end next to Gates, she looking like she came out of India. Is that a tan? Like, yeah, she looking a little, you know, POC, diverse, enriched, culturally enriched, as the alt-righters, the white nationalists would say. She's looking culturally enriched. Look at her. Hold up. Boebert. Okay, do your thing. Tanned up, you know what I'm saying? I'm not hating. I'm just making an observation. I'm just saying. I'm not being a hating ass nigga. I'm just saying. I got nothing negative to say about Lauren Boebert outside of her performance as a stateswoman. Nothing. I don't care about the private shit and all that other shit. But you know what I'm saying? She's looking a little culturally enriched.
And if my predecessor is watching, instead of paying politics and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join me in telling the Congress to pass it. We can do it together. But that's what here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not.
It's a bad day.
Because of their faith.
Bad day for Republicans.
Unlike my predecessor, on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. secure the border, provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans, and ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. That's America. And we all come from somewhere, but we're all Americans. Look, folks, we have a simple choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama.
Not gonna lie. Republicans, that day was a bad day for y'all, which was yesterday. Not a good day for y'all. The look of discomfort, the look of embarrassment, the look of, expose. The fact that y'all had to sit there and be exposed in front of the American people at the State of the Union address for everything you've been up to in Congress, enjoying the ignorance of the American people, the lack of awareness of the American people, but you've been put on blast, front line and center, by Joe Biden in the State of the Union address. At some point, there needs to be more accountability for these MAGA henchmen, because they've been able to derail, and Republicans did the same thing with Obama. I hear people say all the time, Obama never did anything, Obama never got anything done. He couldn't get anything done because Republicans in Congress wouldn't let him pass anything. They wouldn't let him pass anything of quality. They wouldn't let him pass anything good. They wouldn't let him pass anything at all. Here we have Joe Biden trying to pass bills that secure our nation, both foreign and domestic issues, to secure these issues to make sure they can go away, and we have Republicans actively derailing it over and over and over and over and over again. And they've enjoyed the ignorance of the American people. The American people don't know and understand the fact that these MAGAites keep derailing important legislation. And it was unbelievably important for Joe Biden to take the stage and to point the finger at these people and say, you are the source. You are the problem. As they sit there in the crowd and wear these lapels and these pins of that young woman who was killed by an illegal, they sit there and derail and undermine legislation built to secure our border and to stop illegals from coming in. It doesn't get any more sick and twisted than that. Joe Biden is saying, look, this is a problem. I'm not going to run from it. I will offer a solution. And you have these folks who are wearing this young woman's face and name on their clothing on the Senate floor and still in their mind think it's appropriate. They think it's appropriate to sit there and derail legislation meant to secure our border. You can't make up a more sick story. But this is what's happening right now in our nation. This is the chaos. This is the fuckery. This is the bullshit we got to deal with as Americans. I applaud Joe Biden for his stance against MAGA. I applaud him for his stance in the State of the Union address, and I applaud him for his execution and his performance. That's my take on it. My name is Rashad Crenshaw. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm out.